everyone and welcome. My name is Olafur Jonsson and I'm a principal product owner here at LS Retail. And I welcome you to this webinar on LS Central for Forecourt, the software for your fuel and C-store needs. Now, before we dive in, a bit of housekeeping covering few practicalities. Now, this webinar is being recorded and we will distribute the recording alongside the slides to all registered participants shortly after the webinar. Now, all participants are in listening only mode during the webinar. So the way to ask questions is to type them in your question panel in the webinar console. And I encourage you to do so as I go through the webinar. And I will then answer your questions in the Q&A part towards the end of the session. And also be mindful that your questions and the respective answers will then be a part of the content that we will distribute after the webinar. And with that, let us dive into the topic of today, which is LS Central for Forecourt, the software for your fuel and C-store needs. So the role of the gas stations has been evolving over time. And if we look at the numbers, we see that the type of sales that are performed to the gas stations have changed and will continue to do so. Fuel sales are declining and will continue to fall in the future, while non-fuel retail offerings will gain traction. For this reason, it is vital for retailers to understand that forecourts are now not seen only as petrol stations, but rather as convenience stores with food service, restaurants, retail shops, and entertainment, going beyond just simple fuel sales to drive more interest from customers. So in the past, the visit to the gas station was centered around handling fuel purchases as quickly and smoothly as possible. The focus was on the car, a vehicle-centric approach, if you like. All the layout of the stores and the processes, all designed to serve the car in the quickest and best way as possible. Now today, we see that the focus has shifted and is more about delivering convenience and maybe to-go way of doing business. And we are also seeing a rise in other types of services, like picking up your parcel at the gas stations or having other types of services. Now this means that the focus is now on the customer, demanding a customer-centric approach. Now this will continue to evolve and we will see fuel sales dropping even more and other type of businesses increase that the customer will expect to get at the gas stations. Now this is also linked to the fact that the gas stations are often on a prime locations that will be suited for many type of businesses. So we believe that the fuel retailers that thrive will be those that deliver compelling experiences and environments for their customers, going from a car-centric approach to a customer-centered approach, going from having the focus on selling fuel to selling food, retail, and services. So what are the future needs of the gas station? Well, they will continue to be able to sell fuel easily and smoothly, but also to handle different type of businesses like high-end restaurants, luxury cafes, pharmacies, parcel picking up points, and different services. All of those with multiple paying options. But can a single platform handle that? We believe that LS Central is the perfect match for gas stations going forward, due to the nature of the solution to be able to run your entire business with one platform, keeping the customer at the center. The key benefits of LS Central for Forecourt is that in the same system you can offer your customers great flexibility with multiple sale methods in the same POS that you use for your other businesses. All sales are conducted through the same point of sale. The system also has a framework to handle the wet stock information, the LS Forecourt Tank Journal framework, to store forecourt data and be the base for the wet stock management. So, LS Central for forecourt is an end-to-end solution for fuel retailers and can be used to perform various parts of the businesses in regards to selling fuel. Now, we recognize that many of our customers have considerable investments in a third-party head office platform, which they want to retain. Platforms like SAP S/4HANA, Dynamics F&O, or Oracle. Many of these solutions are built to handle very high number of users in multiple countries and handle processes like finance, warehousing, and distribution. But they still have the need for a modern retail system like LS Central. And for those kinds of setup, we have created the LS Central Connect to make that integration to the ERP systems smooth. And I encourage you to listen to our recent webinar on Central Connect if you want to get more familiarized with that solution. So we see at our customers is that the wet stock handling and the replenishment of fuel can be in a different system. But we have the LS forecourt tank journal framework to store the forecourt data, and then it depends on the setup where those processes will be handled. But in this webinar, I will focus on the POS and how the POS system connects to the pumps and can handle the fuel sales. So we have the LS Central solution that is running in a browser. And then we have the hardware out in the forecourt. That is the pumps, the price signs, etc. And the question is, how can a browser-based POS connect and control those devices, the pumps, etc.? And the key there is the forecourt controller, or site controller as it's sometimes called, that connects to all of the hardware, the tanks, the price signs, etc., and then provides the API between the POS and the pumps. Now, these forecourt controller interfaces can be proprietary, but IFSF industry standard interfaces are available that simplify the interfacing. We have added a support for the forecourt controllers in our hardware station. Now, the hardware station today handles access to all retail hardware that the POS needs to have access to, like the printers, the scanners, etc. And in the same way, the hardware station can now give access to forecourt controller using this API from the respective controller. And with hardware station now, you get base plugins for the DOMS 5000 and the Vane Fusion and the simulator. If plugin for other controllers is needed, then it needs to be created either by a partner or in a consulting project with the LS Retail consulting team. Now, a key piece of information in handling the fuel is knowing the volume in the tanks. This information is then used in both the replenishment process as well as in the reconciliation function, where the volume in the tank is compared with the data from the sales. Now, this tank information comes from the ATG, the automatic tank gauge, which is a device connected to the tank probes that takes the information that the probe delivers, typically the height of the product in the tank and any water detected, and converts that height information into volume of the fuel product based on strapping tables that characterize the shape of the tank. Now, this information can be sent to third-party systems or stored in the forecourt tank journal. Now, the POS part of LS Central for forecourt. So when a POS terminal is configured to be a forecourt terminal, and that is done in the POS terminal setup, and the POS user logs on, the pause will open up a banner on top of the POS, as we see in the slide. Now, this banner communicates with the forecourt controller and starts receiving real-time data about the number of the pumps connected and the real-time status of the pumps. Based on this information, then the banner is set up, one tile per pump, and the status of each pump is updated in real time in each tile. It is then possible to click on the tile and perform actions on the pumps, but also to do general pump actions like authorizing the pumps, stopping and starting them. The system also handles possible drive-off detection and shows that on the respective tile. And then this gives the POS user the ability to handle fuel sales from inside the store. But let's look at this in a demo. So I will now switch over to LS Central. So I'm running LS Central here, and if I start the POS, now I'm using here a terminal that I have pre-configured to be a forecourt terminal, and I will show you later where that is done. But this is the normal login screen for the POS, and we see that in addition to the normal login screen, there's a banner here. It's grayed out and it says, please log on into the POS. Now, this banner, as we discussed, it connects to the forecourt controller, but it will only do so after I've logged on. That's why this is grayed out and no information shown. So when I do that, then the banner here has contacted the forecourt controller, which is now using a simulator for this demo purposes. And then this banner is drawn up or set up according to the information it has received from the forecourt controller. So we see here that using the simulator, I'm on a gas station which has 8 pumps, and therefore we have 8 tiles. And in each tile, we can see in the top left corner the number of the pump, and in the bottom right corner we see the status of the pumps. So pump number 1 is idle, and that is also shown using this icon. Pump number 2 and number 3 are calling, so somebody has lifted the nozzle, but he can't start pumping until it's authorized. And we also see here an amount, which means that on pump 1 we have a fuel transaction that has been pumped, but it has not been paid. And if there are more than one, we will see a plus sign after the amount. So if we click on pump number 1, it opens a screen showing more information. So we see here that these are the actions that I can perform on the pump. I can stop it, close it, I can do prepay actions, which we'll cover later, and I can see the 2 fuel transactions that have been pumped but haven't been paid. So we can see the type of the fuel transaction. This was 98 octane for the total amount of 42.96, and the time was 12 minutes past 8. And before we go into the payment actions, I'm going to cover the general pump actions that we can perform using the fuel banner. So if I press the left arrow here, it will open a pane which will show us the possible general action I can perform on the pumps. So the first one here is the emergency stop, the stop all. Now this is an action that is needed if for some reason we need to stop all the all the pumps immediately. This is an emergency stop. And we do so simply by pressing this. But as this action calls for that you have to confirm it, so we get the question, are you sure you want to stop all the pumps? And I say yes. And then the forecourt banner sends this command to the controller, and the controller sends the stop action to all the pumps. And then the forecourt controller updates the status that all the pumps are stopped, and then the banner is updated, because the banner always updates itself based on the information that it gets from the controller. All right, so all the pumps are stopped, and if we want to recall them again, we can do so by clicking the tile for each pump, but we can also recall them all, which we have done now. If the pumps would be in the calling state, like we saw earlier, then we can also use this to authorize all calling at once. And the lock transactions, the last action that I can do there, that is to unlock specific transaction that had been reserved by one of the POSs, and we need to get access to that. But that's an edge case. And yeah, so turning our attention again to the fuel banner and what actions are possible from there. So if we select pump number 1 again, and as we said, there are 2 transactions there waiting to be finalized. Now there's a limit to how many transactions the forecourt controller allows to be pumped without being paid, and this is settings that are configurable on the controller. Typical is 2 or 3. So let's then finalize payment of one of those transactions. So then we're doing a post pay, because the fuel has already been pumped into the car. So we are going to finalize this transaction here. So I simply press add to cart, and then this transaction is brought into the cart of the POS, and it shows the line there, the amount, but it also shows a detail line, which is configurable in the back of it if this detail line is to be shown or not. All right, so we are in a gas station that also is a small coffee shop, a high-end coffee shop. So it it sells a high-end coffee and some bakery, fruit, etc. So we want to add to the sale this espresso, this high-end luxury espresso. So we click that, and that is brought to the cart. And this could be any type of business set up in the POS according to the function that the gas station is handling, and we are now finalizing that with the fuel sale in the same transaction. All right, so I'm happy with what my business here, so I'm going to pay. I'm going to use cash now. I could be paying with a card or any other payment method, and now this fuel transaction has been paid using the post pay action, and now we see that it has gone from the tile, because immediately while I paid the transaction with cash, the command was sent to the banner, which forwarded to the controller that this fuel transaction has been paid, and therefore the controller updates his status of the pump, and we get and all of the POSs get an update information from the controller that this is no longer waiting to be paid here at pump number 1. All right, but let's see some pre-setting actions. So if I click pump number 1 again, I can see that I can do also some pre-actions on the pumps. I can do prepay, but I can also preset the pump to set a limit for either a specific amount or a specific volume that can be pumped. So let's do a prepay. So I simply press the prepay button. I select the rate that I want to prepay for, and then the amount. So now we see that the pump has gone into a reserve state because we've sent the forecourt controller information that we are going to reserve this, but we need to finalize payment. And then the controller sets the pump in the reserve state, so nobody can lift the nozzle or do anything on the other POSs regarding number one. And the transaction has been brought down into the cart of the POS, and I simply pay it. And then we see that the command is sent to the controller, which then sends the information to the pump and updates the status that the state is now that it is in the prepay mode for the amount of 30. And the customer can then walk out into the forecourt, lift up the nozzle and start to pay up to 30. So let's then look at the preset actions. I can do two preset actions. I can preset the amount that the customer can pump for, and I can preset the volume. And this is quite simple. I simply press the preset amount, select the amount, and then we see here it's authorized to pump up to the amount of 30. He still has to while after he finished his pump, he still needs to come into the store, finalize the payment, but it is preset for this limit. Similarly, I can do so for the presetting the volume, so it would be the same way. But I'm going to show you here, okay, this is calling, so let's demonstrate how we deauthorize, and then customer is waiting, he starts pump, we see that action going on. And I'm going to demonstrate one action so I'm going to pay this to clear this, because I want to show you. Okay. Oh, let's do that. Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate for you one action or one process that we can have when we're doing the prepay. So let's imagine that the customer comes in and he said, "Hey, I'm at pump number 3 and I want to prepay for a specific amount." And we do that, and we pay it. But then he said, "Oh no, sorry, I was at pump number 4." And then we can do transfer prepay. Okay. Sorry, it was not in the idle state, so let me, yeah. Oh, sorry. All right, so the point is that to transfer a prepayment, you can do that by clicking the transfer prepay and then selecting the pump. But as using the simulator, there is so much action going on that I wasn't quick enough to move it. But now we've noticed here that the tiles have changed, almost all of them, and we see this icon here, which is indicating that the attention of the POS user is required. So what this is an indication that a possible drive-off was detected. And what that means is that in the system, in setting up the system, we can define drive-off minutes and configure that. And I have configured it to be 10 minutes. Now, how that works is that after each transaction has been pumped and it's been brought into the POS, then this counter starts counting. And once the time has reached this drive-off minutes limit is 10 minutes, those transactions and those transactions haven't been paid, then they will be marked as possible drive-offs. So what that means is that it's just an indication to the POS user that there's this long time that has elapsed since it was pumped, and they should be aware of that. The driver might have gone away without paying. So, and as we see, there's a lot of them in this state. So let's just take a look at here, pump number 1, and we see that this icon here is shown to indicate that this has been marked as a possible driver, and the color has also changed. So what the POS user then does next to finalize the transaction, if he wants to do so, I mean, it can be that the driver is still in the shop and he's just drinking his coffee or whatnot. But if the POS user thinks that the driver has gone, so it won't be paid, he can finalize this, and that is done according to the procedure at each gas station. But a very general one would be to add this to the cart and then finalize this with a special tender that has been set up, which is the drive-off tender. And what that means is that the transaction is finalized in the POS system, and the information is sent to the controller that this has been paid. But it's marked with this tender drive-off, and then according to the processes in the back end, at the end of the day or end of the shift, then the back end team will take a look at all of those transactions that was finalized with drive-off, maybe compare it to the video system on the gas station, and according to the time of the transaction, try to find out the license plate of the car, etc. All right. So this is the general functionality of the forecourt extension to the POS. It is the banner. The banner connects to the work controller, get all the information from there, and from that connection, we can perform the general pump actions that affect all the pumps, or we can work on individual pumps. All right. Just to show you in the end of the demo, I talked about that we can have the terminal needs to be configured to be a forecourt terminal. That is because we can in a gas station we do not need to have and I select terminal I want to configure. We can have multiple setup of the POSs. We can have some POSs that can connect to the forecourt and sell fuel. It can be all of those, or some of those. But so to set up a specific terminal, if it's going to be a forecourt terminal showing the banner like I showed you, and we simply configure this terminal with forecourt in use. And if we've done that, once we log on to that terminal, it will show the banner like I demonstrated. Now, we can also, using the interface profile, there we control the settings of, like I demonstrated. So in the forecourt part of this, there's the drive-off minutes. It's set to 10. It can be, if you don't want to use it, you don't have to enter a number there. Or or specifically the number that is appropriate. There's some rounding settings, fuel points per line. This is set to 10. It was 8 pumps that we showed there on the line. This could be set to smaller. If it was set to 6 or something, then we would have seen this in 2 lines. We have to select the unit of measure. And then as we saw in the POS, there was the fuel selling line, but below that there was an information line showing more details about the transaction, and we can control here if we want this detailed transaction line to be shown or not. And then there is one key piece of information that we need to do, that we need to set up. And that is, we need to establish the link between the fuel items that we have in LS Central, the item number for the fuel, and then the grade ID that the forecourt controller is working on. So the forecourt controller sends the banner information about the pumps, but also the grade that's in that transaction, and the grade IDs that the controller is using is a number 1, 2, 3, etc. So we have to establish the link between what is grade ID number 1 that the controller and the pumps are using. What does that map to in the LS Central item list? And we do that here. So say that grade ID 1, that is item number 52010, which in this case is 895. So this must be configured before. So when bringing a transaction from the banner into the POS, it will use the correct item number. All right. So if we go back to the slides. So if we talk about the architecture and the extendability, I skipped one slide. The architecture of the system. So LS Central for forecourt is deployed as a separate extension to LS Central. Now, our license manager handles the licensing of the module in the same way it does with other modules within LS Central. And this system, as we demonstrated, can be configured from the back office like other LS Central settings are set in. And the forecourt controller integration, that is in the controller plugin in the hardware station. And then, regarding the extendability, so the solution is extendable in the same way as LS Central using available events and the AL code. The forecourt ribbon itself, it is implemented as a web template and can be customized as any other web template. And then the forecourt controller implementation in the hardware station, the code for the base plugin is open source and it can be customized if needed, or it can be used as a base for new controller implementations. All right. Then just before we go into questions, a quick reminder of our regional connection events. As you're probably all aware, we have 3 regional connections events this year, one in Miami, another in Lisbon, and then in Da Nang. So dear partners, if you have already booked your tickets, then well done. And for others, we really encourage you to act quickly to secure your place, because we are indeed very much looking forward to meeting all of you for some quality time together. So everyone, thank you very much for attending this webinar. As we said, we will send out the information back where you will get an access to the recording, but also to the slides and the Q&A. But again, thank you very much for attending this webinar. Take care and enjoy the rest of the day. So thank you and goodbye.